Talking with Eric Kolchinsky. Eric was an analyst at Moody's up until November of 2007 and has certainly questioned in terms of the ratings policies that Moody's used. Let me ask you, you lost your job.
Yes.
You think it's directly because of the concerns you raised at Moody's?
I believe so. What happened is that after I filed the memo, it was a 14-page memo with a lot of detail in it.
To Moody's executives, correct?
To Moody's executives. They hired an outside law firm. And they asked me, one day I was sitting in my office, I got a call from HR. They asked me to come down, and they asked me to come down to their office, and they gave me an ultimatum. I either speak with the attorney now, or I'm suspended. And I just wanted to have, I had an employment attorney, I wanted to have that attorney present with me when I speak to their litigator, and
right.
I didn't have a chance, so I just walked out.
You know that they say the claims of misconduct are unsupported. That's from Moody's Chief Risk Officer, Richard Cantor. They've come out and said that. They mentioned they
Yes.
reviewed your claims by an outside law firm, interviewed 22 Moody's employees. You were the only one who refused to speak to attorneys. And you just explained why. I mean, you weren't given any options to stay at Moody's.
Well, I was either to speak with that attorney right there and then,
right,
or I'm suspended. Those are my two choices. And so they suspended me.
All right. So what do you think happens? I mean, you also raised concerns with the SEC, correct?
Yes.
And what happened there?
Well, I reached out to them, and I think we're trying to arrange a meeting sometime next week or the week after that.
Do you feel like they missed the mark as well?
It's a very difficult job to do for the SEC, and that's probably part of the problem. Each rating agency has its own methodology, and its methodology has its own specifics and details and minutia. And it's very difficult for an outsider who's not an expert in that methodology to understand exactly what happened.
Right.
Because I'm an expert, I can easily run circles around you by
But that goes back to the idea that the folks who are regulators aren't really sophisticated enough.
Well, sophisticated, and not only that, you almost can't be, because the person you're regulating has their own methodology. It's like an accountant making up their own accounting rules and saying, no, of course I'm right by my accounting rules. I made them up. So it's very difficult for a regulator to regulate that.
What do you think should happen, Eric? I mean, the House is said to be considering legislation that would increase oversight of credit ratings companies.
Yes.
I'm curious, what confidence do you have that there will be significant change so that when a ratings company like Moody's or S&P makes a rating, it's an accurate one?
I think we need reform of the rating agency system. I don't think any of the bills out there right now cover a lot of these problems. My proposal is to create a body similar to FASB. One which would lay out minimum standards for methodologies that would have to be used across the board. And that way you can have competition, and you can have public, transparent ratings and methodologies.
Right.
As I spoke earlier, one of the things you need an incentive for analysts to say no to a deal. And if you look at the accounting industry, it's not been free from scandal, but it's
hard to have that incentive when the person doing the issuing
Yes.
is also paying for that.
That's true, but what you don't have in accounting, let's say your client comes in and says, you know what, I think this is a gain and you think it's a loss.
Right.
And the accountant say, look, I'm following GAAP and it's a loss. In a rating agency, if there was a rating agency, there would be another rating agency out there and say, you know what, we think that's a gain.
Right.
Because I don't have to follow GAAP, I have to follow my own methodology. Just imagine accounting firms creating their own rules about what's a gain or what's a loss.
Right.
You would have a race to the bottom in standards. And that's
chaos,
what you
just
chaos.
All right, you lost your job.
Yes.
Do you think that there are executives at Moody's who should lose their jobs over this?
That's not something that's not something I want to speculate. I hope the company gets back on its track. It's a good company. There's a lot of good people there.
But don't you feel like some senior managers made some really wrong decisions? Illegal decisions?
I'm not going to say. I just hope the company gets back on its feet. It's a good company with a lot of good people. I definitely think they should need to clean up their act. However they do it, whether it includes people leaving or not, but they just need to clean up their act.
And they need to do it now, because from what you're saying, they haven't cleaned up their act.
They've not.
No.
They're not.
So we're getting issues out there with wrong ratings, in your view.
you never know because there's no controls, and that's the problem. It's not that you have one group that's trying to do there's groups there that are trying to do the right thing.
Right.
Most of the fundamental municipal, corporate, they're trying to do the right thing. There are other groups that are not, and you never know which one's which because there's no controls. There's no effective credit policy. There's no effective compliance group.
Right.
You never know what you're going to get. You could have great ratings and people are trying to do their job, and you can have horrible ratings. You just never know. It depends on which rating it is.
All right. I know it's been a tough and a crazy week for you, and I really appreciate you finding time for us, Eric. I really do.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
I know
very much.
you're out there hunting for a job, so good luck with that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Eric Kolchinsky, everybody.